My name is Cara Tierney. I'm an interdisciplinary artist and educator, consultant and activist, and I live in so-called Ottawa on the unceded and unsurrendered land of the Algonquin Nation. My creative practice spans a wide variety of media. Really what drives me to choose a particular way to work is the idea or the set of questions that I might be exploring at any given moment. I'm particularly interested in the way that creativity allows us really nuanced and gentle spaces for encountering the self. And for me, what this has meant has been when I experience moments of friction or moments of unresolved curiosity, I've regularly found through creative practice really expansive ways to come to particular realizations, you know, and I wouldn't say that they're like solid or concrete realizations, but small moments that perhaps allow me passage into the next moment. And so what this has looked like over the course of my creative practice has been questioning the ways that language or the ways that ceremonies of gender, and I guess I would call those things like the way we are conditioned into gender in ways that might be positioned against us, and the way we sort of internalize scripts or ideas or narratives about who we are or who we should be. And in particular, I'm interested in the way art can allow us to question those and can maybe undo what might be presented as simple or taken for granted. I'm particularly interested in the way language facilitates this. And the way language, which is something that, you know, we speak, we utter words, it feels temporary and fleeting, but it has concrete consequences and effects and produces realities that we exist through. So I'm interested in the way that language in particular facilitates movement and a coming into or realization about who we are and how we connect with others and how we move through this world. The work that I've created for this show, there are two pieces. So one piece was made specifically for the Cahun Moore exhibit, and then another one is a photograph from a past performance. So the piece that I made specifically for the show, you know, when I was thinking about Claude Cahun and Marcel Moore, immediately what come to mind are the incredible photographic works and the collages that they made, and lesser known as, you know, the incredible writing and the really enigmatic writing where we have, you know, some interesting evidence of gender revolution, let's call it. And, you know, while all of those ideas are actually very present in the photographs and in the photo collages, we tend to prioritize language over images in our society. And having not spent any time with the words that Cahun had left us, I saw this as an opportunity to really dive into their writing. In particular, I read Disavowals, or Aveu non avenu in French. And so I went through the text and, you know, sort of underlined and highlighted all the passages that really resonated with me, or that felt like, yes, they may have been written 100 years ago, but they felt incredibly salient and pertinent to today's realities, and to my experience as a queer and non-binary person. So the reason why I chose to make them out of wood, again, it goes back to this idea that language, you know, we mostly encounter it through speech or typed and written on a page, but that the act of uttering words or the gesture of putting words and language down on paper, that these practices structure the world as we experience it. And, you know, if we think about things like human rights, right, and we think about laws, and those are sort of the most obvious examples of where language really structures our reality in ways that can be prohibitive or permissible. And so I wanted to, you know, blow up their words and give them a physical material presence as a way of pulling them off the page and putting them into space in ways that would make them accessible to people who maybe aren't aware that there are, you know, hundreds of more really meaty quotes that Cahun, and ideas, right, that Cahun and Moore left behind for us. The photographic work that is included in the show is a double portrait. It's myself with myself. And actually, I had seen the earlier work of Cahun, the double exposure, where they are, you know, they look like they're emerging out of themselves. And it wasn't a direct reference to that work, though the fact that there are echoes is certainly not lost on me, having been very profoundly affected by the work of someone like Cahun, somebody who I could, you know, see in the books of my art in the pages of my art history books, and recognize that, you know, I'm not making this up as I go along. Actually, there are precedents for my experience that have sort of been buried under the sediment of history. And so what you're looking at in that photograph is 2 photos of myself that I took shortly after a performance. And in that performance, I hired a hairdresser to give me my father's hairstyle. At the time, I was thinking deeply through gender transition, through hormone therapy and gender affirmative surgeries, and, you know, dreaming about what paths I would be taking and what would be most consonant with my own desires. And it was a process that was very isolating, to be honest. I hadn't really connected with a trans community that had sort of opened those conversations up to me, and there was this real sense of going back and forth in my own mind and working from the limited scripts that had been available to me. And there's this sort of, the title Back and Forth is this, the oscillation, the movement of going back and forth between, you know, what are my desires, who am I, and who do I think I am, and who do I think society thinks I am. And so this constant negotiation between the self as something that is felt and embodied and undergone, and self as a projection. And so this was why, you know, the image, 2 profile shots of myself looking at myself, and sort of splitting myself from myself and objectifying myself in ways where I was doing this movement from inside to outside to inside again, as an attempt to maybe come out the other side with a little bit more language, and those moments of granting permission to oneself to find the language and the body in which we most feel loved by ourselves.